Hello everybody, it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter and welcome to episode 100. Hard to believe that I've done 100 of these already. How time flies when you're having fun, eh? So, what's today? Well, you can see behind me I have my Wild and Loud quilt. That's the one made from a big bag of scraps that I got at Christmas time from our guild at our Christmas party, our virtual Christmas party, of course. And well, I'm going to talk about it in a minute because I want to talk a little bit about how I actually quilted this piece. But before I do that, I want to show you what I've been working on. Last week I showed you that I had finished the top to my Australian quilt, and now I had a lot of Australian fabric left over, so I want to use it, and so I thought I'd piece the backing for that quilt, and that is what I'm working on right now. It is a whip, a work in process, and here's what they're going to look like. Now I'm only going to do 9 of these, so it's going to be a big 9 patch, and then I'm going to fill in the area around it with strips of that fabric. At least that's my plan right now. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. But this is basically the design for the stars. This is a sawtooth star, and I'm keeping with the motif of the stars on the Australian flag, although these are not the colors, or even the design of the stars on the Australian flag, but it's suggestive. I'll probably, when I put these together, I won't do them as a true 9 patch. I'm going to put sashing in between them, because when you put these pieces together, and they are going to be different, they're going to look, I think, I think they need to have a bit of a division in them. In a sense, what I'm doing with this quilt then is, this quilt may be reversible. You've got what looks like a quilt on the back and a quilt on the front. This is going to take a little while to do. I've already sort of set up little mini kits to make each one of these blocks that I have here, and then I'll just work on it from there. So that's what I'm working on right now. So what I want to do is I want to take you up close and personal for a minute or two with this particular quilt. Because I decided that since this was a quilt made from scraps and it was kind of improvised, how do you say that? Improvised. I made it up as I went along, kind of a thing. It's not that important to me. So this could be a charity quilt, or this could end up being, you know, a cuddle quilt kind of a thing. You know, throw over the top of you while you're watching TV. Sometimes it's a little chilly. I mean, right now we're in winter, so here where I live, it is quite chilly. So I might do that. I don't know. So I wasn't very concerned about the quilting part of it. I looked at it more as a practice piece. Well, I learned a few things from that. One, I learned I'm not getting any better at free motion quilting, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm just going to take the camera off the tripod here for a second and move it over where we can see this a little bit more up close. Okay, so when I quilted this, I used a light blue thread, which actually was a good choice because it does show up on the white parts, but not so much on the darker parts. And kind of what I'm about to show you is why I'm very glad it doesn't show up that well. So let's move right in and let me point out the free motion quilting. And here it is. So right off the bat, that's fun, whatever was happening there. Yeah, I guess I decided I was going to do sort of curvy lines especially along the sashing pieces, and well, it didn't work out all that well. From a distance you don't really notice it, but really up close I know it's there, and to me it looks like a mess. You can see I did do some sort of try to do straight lines. This is all free motion on the interior of the blocks, and at one point I decided to do a meandering kind of a thing on this block. And yeah, what can I say? But you know, it is a quilt made from scraps, so I'm not going to worry about it. it is what it is. It was a little bit practice. Sometimes I got a little better as I went along, but I finally gave up. I did it this whole section down here in free motion. Then I went to my rulers, and I got out one of my curvy rulers. I forget what they call this one, but it's by Angela Walters. So I just went across in these blocks. I found it was getting a little tedious to do like quilting in each individual little piece in here, so I decided to treat this as a much bigger piece. And yeah, I did that. Now that I can do better. It's still not perfect. But I do like doing the ruler work, and I think I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on ruler work. I have more confidence doing that kind of thing. Then I decided to get out my walking foot because, quite frankly, I was getting sick of doing this. So I got out my walking foot and did straight lines down here. I thought I'd be fancy and let them cross up at the top and the corners. That might not have been such a great idea, but I did it anyways. And then I decided to fall back on my tried and true wavy lines with a walking foot. And that's how I finished off the rest of the quilt, and you can see them up here. And in the corner pieces, they do cross over a little bit. Again, that might have been a mistake. If I had done that from the beginning, if I had done the wavy lines using the walking foot across the whole quilt, I think I would have been happy. But I'm trying to think outside of my box here and challenge myself. And so I'm not really happy with the quilting, but as I said, I did it in a light enough color that, to the casual viewer of this quilt, if anybody else ever sees it, I don't think they're really going to notice it. It's when you get up close and personal with it and really study the quilting that you'd probably go, oh yeah, that was done by an amateur. But anyways, it was a fun exercise. And here's what I did with the backing. I got the backing all finished. It's wild and loud too, as you can see. And the quilting sort of shows up on the back, but not as visible because of all of the colors that are on here. Actually, I kind of like the back almost better than the front. But as I said, this was just to use up scraps. It was a process where I didn't have to put a lot of thought into it. And yeah, it is what it is. So anyways, you know, you always learn something. No matter what you do, I find I do. And so I did learn some things there. What did I learn? I learned that I'm still not very good at free motion quilting. It's going to take a lot of practice. I already knew that beforehand. That just confirmed it for me. So what's next? Well, I really got to get to work on the rest of those UFOs. Once I get the Aussie quilt done, then I'm going to put a concentrated effort into quilting some of the UFOs. For the sake of time and to get them done, I may just resort to doing what I know best, and that's walking foot quilting. And I may just go with that because I just want to get them off the hangers over there and done, okay? Because they're hanging over my head. And when something hangs over your head like that, it becomes less fun. It becomes a chore. And I don't want this hobby to become a chore. It's supposed to be relaxing. It's supposed to be fun. So that's what I've got coming up. Plus, later today, I have this bad tendency, and I think a lot of people have this, of not labeling your quilts. I have made quilts or labels in the past, and I usually forget to sew them in. I end up using steam-a-seam on them, and that holds pretty well. I don't know if over centuries how well that will stay stuck. It depends, I guess, on how many times you wash the quilt, things like that, wear and tear. But I need to start labeling them. So I'm going to sit down with Artistic Digitaltizer today, the Janome program for my embroidery machine, and I think I'm going to design a very simple set of labels that I can start putting onto most of my quilts, and from here on in. I'm just going to put basically my name on it, like created by, my name, and the year. And I'll just keep it as simple as that. So that's later today. Okay, so that takes us to our new feature, and I have another quilt to show you from one of my subscribers. But before I do that, I want to put in a little bit of an apology. Last week, the first quilt that I featured, which was by Fidel Leon, I referred to Fidel as being a woman. Don't ask me why I did that. I mean, after all, Fidel is often one of my regular viewers on Stephen and Walter Live, and he actually uses the label Mr. Leon. So, you know, brain should say that this is a guy. I guess it's because I didn't expect to have too many male quilters come in contact with my YouTube channel. But anyways, Mr. Leon did, and we saw his quilt last week, and it's beautiful. And I do have a question for Mr. Leon as well about the quilting. I think he said he has a Sweet 16 that he was quilting on. Well, if you looked at that quilt really carefully, he has feathers. He's done feathers. And feathers are something that everybody wants to be able to do, but they always seem, at least for me, out of my reach for doing them. And they were beautiful. So I just want to know, did you actually do those as free motion, or did you use a stencil? Or what? I'm just curious about them because they are absolutely beautiful. And I think you mentioned too in the email you sent to me that you haven't been quilting for that long, and I sort of associate that kind of quilting with somebody that has many, many, many years of experience and practice. So they're gorgeous, they're wonderful, they're great. I wish I could do them, but just let me know. Just drop me a line in the comments below or send me an email. I just very curious about that. Okay, so sorry, Mr. Leon, the formal apology for misidentifying your gender. Okay, very sorry about that. All right, so the quilt of the week is by Jean Eubanks. And what I did with this is I have created a little video to talk about her quilt. And actually she sent me 2 quilts, and I'm going to insert that video right here for you right now. This week's Quilter of the Week is Jeannie Eubanks. And Jeannie writes, "The first picture is the first or second quilt I made. It's a rail fence pattern. The fabrics are Asian inspired. Fast forward 6 years, the second picture is my current work in progress using scraps from the other quilt plus additional fabrics. The pattern is Gudrun Erla's Harmony. And both quilts are really beautiful, Jeannie. A rail fence pattern looks very simple, but actually a lot of things can go wrong with this type of quilt. And you've done a beautiful job of that, and the Asian fabrics are really interesting. I haven't really seen anything quite like those before. The pattern Harmony that you used in the second quilt is by a fairly famous individual in the quilting community, Gudrun Erla. I believe she's Icelandic. And I have put in the show notes a link to both Gudrun's webpage and also her YouTube channel. And her YouTube channel is really great. And she runs, I think, once every week, sort of a mini retreat through YouTube. So you might want to check that out. But Jeannie, your quilts are gorgeous. And thank you so much for sharing them with us. So both are really beautiful quilts, and I thank Jean for sending those to me. That was great. And you also know that if you'd like to send me some pictures and a brief explanation about your quilts, just put them in. My email address is in the show notes. Simply send that to me as an attachment with a little note, as I said, and I will feature your quilts as well. So I've had a few come in, so I've got a few weeks worth right now, but I'm going to run out soon. I need some more, and I love seeing what you're creating. And you deserve, every one of you, and it doesn't matter what level of a quilter you are, you deserve to have a forum to show your creations. So don't be shy. send them along. Now, in Jean, the video I did of Jean's quilts, she mentioned also that she had gotten the pattern for the quilt from Gudrun, I hope I say this right, Gudrun Erla's webpage. And I believe Gudrun Erla, sorry about that, actually has a YouTube channel called GE Designs. And I think she does a weekly sort of sewing retreat and things like that. I have watched some of her videos. She's very, very good. And in this time of COVID, you know, this might be an outlet for people to join in. I think she does them live on YouTube. I'm not absolutely sure about that. But anyways, she's got lots of patterns on that website of hers as well that you might be interested in. So I've included the link to both her webpage and her YouTube channel in the show notes so you can check her out. Okay. So, what's that take us to now? Okay, well, I'm talking about links in the show notes. I have a few more in there for you this week. I have one to Arne and Carlos. Now, Arne and Carlos is a knitting, not a quilting channel. They're in Norway. You may have heard of them. They're fairly famous in the knitting community. They design patterns, things like that. But what I really like about their YouTube channel is that they talk about Norwegian culture as well. They talk about their life in Norway, and they talk about everything from folk tales to ancestry, the history. They even have some videos showing different parts of Norway on there. It's really quite interesting. So although you may not be into knitting, like I am not into knitting, you may find this, it's a little bit more than just knitting. So you might want to check it out. That's Arne and Carlos, and I have put the link for those, for their YouTube channel in the show notes below. Okay. Also in the show notes below is the link for this week, which is tomorrow. This is Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2021. At 1 p.m., I'm having my first Wednesday of the month craft and chat. Now, this is a group that I created that's more based upon my vlog, but everybody's welcome. It's just a Zoom meeting. It is not recorded. We sit for a couple of hours and just sew, or quilt, or paint, or scrapbook, or card make, or do paper crafts, or mixed media, or art journaling, whatever you are working on that's your creative outlet. We spend that time doing it. It's a no drama kind of time period, meaning that we do not talk about politics, we do not talk about COVID, any of that stuff. We might share what we're working on, but it's very, very informal. Sometimes people have questions about what other people are doing or asking for help on what they're working on, and that's all fine and dandy. It's very relaxed. So if you're interested in joining us, then the Zoom link is in the show notes today. And as I said, it's tomorrow, Wednesday, February the 3rd, and it will start at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll go for about a couple of hours, 3 hours, something like that. Usually finish up by about 4 o'clock. You are free to come and go as you please in that. So if you're interested, come join us. We've had some regulars coming out, which is great. We're getting to become friends, and that's always nice. So yeah, feel free to join us. Okay, another link you're going to find in there is for a YouTube channel that I'm sure if you've been quilting for any time and you watch YouTube, you've seen this, Jordan Fabrics. They're great. They often have a lot of free patterns, but they do tutorials all the time. And I'm about to show you my quilt, one of my past quilts, to point out for you my idiot quilter mistakes in it. And ironically or serendipitously, I just like using that word, this week's video from Jordan Fabrics, she's actually making the quilt I'm about to show you that I made. And I didn't get the pattern from Jordan Fabrics, but the pattern she is showing is the exact same one that I purchased, oh, 2 years ago or so to make this quilt that I'm about to show you. So I thought that was kind of convenient. So if you want to make this same quilt, which looks very complicated, but it is not, then check out Jordan Fabrics for this. But for now, let's go to critiquing this quilt of mine. So this week I'm featuring this quilt. This quilt sits on our bed right now, and it is a queen size. And it was probably my very first queen size that I ever made. Now I saw this pattern in a quilt store, and it was called Labyrinth. And when I first looked at the pattern, I thought, oh, this is really too complicated, because it does look like a complicated pattern. But I saw one hanging up in the quilt store where I bought the pattern, and I really liked it. Now, of course, it was in different colors than this, and these are sort of my signature colors, the purples, the blues. The pink in it, it's more of a pinky purple. I'm not that fond of pink, but I think it works pretty good with this quilt. So let's take a closer look at it, and let's look at the star in the center. Now, the star in the center, of course, is made up of half square triangles, and you can see something that I'm very proud of. I have all my points in place. So I didn't cut off any points. So that means by the time I got to this quilt, I was getting more comfortable with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I was figuring out how to basically match up your seams so you can avoid cutting off your points. And this quilt has a lot of points, as you can see. But you know, even though it looks really complicated, it's mainly made up of half square triangles. So if you take a look here, half square, half square, half square, half square, and then just a square and half squares here. So really, you only need to know how to make half square triangles to get this effect. And with the star in the center, it looks almost like there would be Y seams when you look at it from a distance, but it's not. They're all half square triangles. So that came out pretty good. Now I'm just scanning around here and coming down to these edges that have these large border pieces, and they're just basically made up of strips. However, there is a problem right here. I did not cut my strips accurate. I'm off by about 1/8 of an inch. And I didn't realize that until I got these outer borders sewn to this. And I did think about taking it apart to fix it, but then I thought, no, because by then I'd spent a lot of time on this quilt, and I just thought, well, unless it's pointed out to you, you probably wouldn't notice that it was there. Of course, what did I do? I just pointed it out to you. But you can see on the other side and along the top and the bottom, I don't have that problem. So it does annoy me every time I look at this quilt that I let those go by, but such is life. But the other points are all pretty good when you get out here to the outer border. They're all pretty much there. They're not cut off, and that's a good thing. And the stripes along the top and the bottom, I really like the fabric, the purple fabric with this pattern in it right here. That's what I really base the whole quilt on, because it's up there and it's down here. Now, I did say this was a queen size. However, I didn't take into consideration the amount of drop. So ideally, I should have added maybe a couple of more borders to this, and it would have dropped down to the floor. But I do have a bed skirt on here. And so, you know, it works okay with the color. Now, I actually have had this on our bed now for a couple of years, and we do not use it as a bedspread. At night, it gets pulled down to the bottom, folded up to the bottom of the bed, and that's where it sits until the next day when we make the bed. Because really, since this is one of my early quilts, I was really afraid to wash this. Now so this one's never been washed, but there will come a day when I will have to wash it. Now I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have any bleed, although I will wash it with color
catchers because these fabrics, I've used them in other things before as well, and they seem to be very, very color fast. And most fabrics today are, unless you get into some blacks and some reds. And as far as quilting is concerned, well, I didn't do anything too adventuresome. I just did wavy walking foot quilting all the way across horizontally on this quilt, which I think worked out pretty good with it. Now, if you look real close at this quilting, you will notice that I used a variegated thread. So that's as fancy as I got with the quilting part of this. As far as the backing is concerned, let me just pull it back here so you can see. This was my backing fabric, and I think I had to piece this. I'm not sure if I got that as a wide back. I'm just looking to see if there's a seam. And no, I think it was one piece. I think I did this all in one piece, wide backing. And again, I picked this on purpose because one, it picks up the colors on the front of the quilt, but also you can't see the quilting until you get right up real close. And I did that on purpose because, again, I wasn't too confident in my quilting abilities, even if I was using a walking foot, so I didn't want those to show up. So that's the quilt that's on our bed. I'm really pleased with it. And there is another quilt in here, but I'm going to talk about that another time. And that's this one that hangs over top of the bed. But that's for next time.
Okay, so that's one of my favorite quilts because it turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. And when I did it, that was only probably about my 4th quilt that I had made. So it was my largest one, and yeah, I was really happy with it. Okay, so that takes us to anything I've bought this week. Well, I haven't got anything to show you. I do have an order, another order I put out to Peachtree Quilts, and it may arrive today, but it hasn't arrived yet, so I haven't got it to show you today, but I will show it to you next week. And basically I loaded up on more of the fabrics I bought before, except I bought them in some different colors as well, because I really like them. So I will show those to you, hopefully, during next week's Idiot Quilter. And so, yeah, haven't bought anything. So that takes us to what I want to talk about in Notions. And I want to talk about my favorite rulers. Now, I don't know if you're like me or not, but I'm looking over in the corner. I have a lot of rulers. I went ruler crazy when I first got into this hobby. And I still like rulers, and I still buy some every now and then. Now, rulers are expensive, as you know. But I always find that I go back to pretty much the same ones over and over again. And I want to show you what those are. One of my absolute go-to rulers, I use it probably with every project I'm working on, is a simple one. It's my 12.5 inch by 1.5 inch, put some paper behind this, ruler. I use this for all kinds of things. It is very handy, very portable. I will cut with it. I measure with it. It's just, I love this ruler a lot. So probably out of all of my rulers, this one I use on almost a daily basis. Another ruler that I turn to a lot, and more of a specialty ruler, are my by Cozy Quilt Designs, the strip tube ruler. They comes in a couple of sizes. This is the large one. Again, we'll need some backing here. This is the large one, and then there is a smaller one as well. Now, what is this ruler used for? Well, I use it for making half square triangles. It's my favorite method for doing it. Now, with half square triangles, you know, you have 2 pieces of fabric, and they're squares, and you put them right sides together, you draw a line down the diagonal, and you stitch a 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides. And then you cut it in half and you have 2 little triangles. Okay? Well, this is what you use to square them up. Now, the way I used to square the triangles up was I'd press them open, and then take one of my other little rulers, say that was a 3.5 inch half square triangle. I would put I have a 3.5 inch square ruler. I'd lay that down, line it up, and trim all along the sides and be done with it. Okay, that works. It's not a problem. But what I like about this is you find the measurement. So if you want a 3.5 inch half square triangle, you find the mark on this line. There's one here. I know you can't see it, but this is all in 1/2 inch increments, whole numbers and 1/2 inches. You lay that line on the seam line of a tube. Okay. Now you can use it with individually cut ones, but if you're going to do them really fast, you can make a tube. And what you do with the tube is you take your strips of fabric, you make whatever width you need, and you make it a little bit bigger than the size that you need for the half square triangle. You sew it on both edges, so you essentially have a tube, and you lay this ruler down the line onto that stitched line, and you cut the two sides. Then you just flip the ruler over and go and cut the next one, and you just go down the line with this. It's very fast for making half square triangles, and it's very accurate. You don't have to do any squaring up afterwards. You've got them cut out of the tube, you open them up, and away you go. So I love this. I use it all the time. Now there's another one that's been created by Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I bought those and I like them. They have little notches in them for cutting off the dog ears that will form when you open up the half square triangle. So you actually get the dog ears cut off before you even open up the piece to press it. I don't use that one that much. I find that's the dog ears, I just rather just cut them off with scissors. I mean, it takes an extra step, but I don't know why, but I'm just comfortable with doing that. But so this is a great ruler. I love it. I use it every time that I'm making half square triangles. Now, another one that I really like is this one. And there are many different versions of this kind of ruler out there. And this is for making flying geese. And I did do a short tutorial on using this ruler. Oops, light coming on that. Using this ruler, just going to get a piece of paper here, for making flying geese. And I'm not going to go into detail about how you use it, but it's very easy to use. It does flying geese in all kinds of sizes. It even tells you on the ruler how to, what pieces of fabric, what size of fabrics you need for the size of flying geese that you're making. And it's very fast and very good. And I am using it actually right now to create these, because essentially these are flying geese. It makes them very accurate for trimming up, and it's great. I love it. And that one is by Creative Grids, and it's called Ultimate Flying Geese Tool. So I highly recommend it. Okay, now another couple of rulers that I cannot live without, and this is when you're cutting strips or when I'm trying to cut, you know, fabric that I need, well, basically strips. Yeah, whatever. And it's a Stripology ruler. And this is my big one. Get the light off it. And you see it's got lines, grooves in it. And you line them up with whatever size of strip you need at the bottom and just zip right through. You do have to fold your fabric to fit in here, but that's not really a problem. And it makes short work of having to cut a lot of strips at one time. They're not cheap. I think I paid $100 for that particular one, and apparently there is another one that's even bigger than that, and I would like to get my hands on that at some point someday, and it's a lot of money, but that is a really well worth investment. Now they have a smaller one, and that would be this one. Same principle. You see you have the grooves and everything. On one side of the measurements you have 1/2 inch measurements, and at the bottom you have 1/4 inch. So if you've got to cut a 3 1/4 inch strip, you can do it on that end, 3 1/2 up at this end. The only thing I don't like about this ruler is that I can't cut that many strips at one time, because this only goes up to about 6 1/2 inches. Yeah, across. So you're constantly having to pick it up and move it over on your fabric. But I do use this a lot for, you know, if I'm just need 1 or 2 strips that are like 2.5 inches or whatever, that kind of thing, I use this one before I grab the big one. But both are good investments as far as I'm concerned. I can't remember what I paid for this one. It was not particularly cheap either. There are other Stripology rulers out there as well. They're a great product. Yeah, I highly recommend those rulers. So you might say, well, if you're starting out in quilting, what rulers would you get? I would definitely get one like this. I would definitely get myself, I didn't show it, but I have a longer ruler, a 24.5 inch by 12.5 inch ruler. That's really great for cutting large pieces of fabric. And beyond that, everything else, I mean, those 2 rulers alone, you can do pretty much everything you want in cutting. The other ones that I've shown you are specialty rulers that make short work of very special types of blocks, like half square triangles, flying geese, strips, that kind of thing. You have to pick what works for you. And as I said, I have a lot of rulers, but the ones I just showed you are my go-tos for and do 90% of any cutting I need to do. Okay, so that was this week's notions. And what does that take us to? Let's check my notes, shall we? Okay. I have looked at the results. People have sent me in their information about whether or not they want to do an Idiot Quilter mini retreat, and the answer seems to be yes. So we're going to give it a go. So the first Idiot Quilter mini retreat, which will be a Zoom, will be held 1 week from this Wednesday. So it'll be February the 10th, 2021 at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I know that this may not be the best time for some people, but I had to go with the majority, and that seemed to be where it fell. And to be honest, I had to think about my own schedule as well. So that's when it's going to be. I have put in the show notes below the link. I will also have that link in any other videos I do on my channel up until that date. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to find it and to join us. What's this retreat all about? Well, this is not going to be that much different from a craft and chat in a sense, but I am focused on people who are quilters or sewers, okay? However, that does not mean I will kick you out if you show up with an art journal or a mixed media project or something like that. No, all are welcome. It's an opportunity, again, just to get together with other people and be inspired by the atmosphere that these kind of things create. It's excuse me, that was rude. Anyways, now what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it's an opportunity for you to you know, just get together with fellow quilters and have some fun. No politics, no discussion about what's going on in the world, just our little world of quilting. Now, if this works out okay, I am seriously considering doing a much larger retreat at some time in the future. What I mean by that is I would host probably a full day quilting retreat, and I might also be able to see if I could find, if I can get somebody else that would like to do some demos, or I do them myself, maybe have some prizes, that kind of thing. I don't know. This is a half-baked idea in my head. But we'll see how this works out in a week's time with the first Idiot Quilter retreat, and I'll go from there. So I hope you can join us. As I said, the Zoom link for that will also be in this week's show notes. Don't get the two mixed up. There's the Craft and Chat, which is this coming Wednesday, and then there's the Idiot Quilter Retreat, which will be the following Wednesday. Okay, so one last thing. I don't want to end this video on a negative note, but something just happened this morning that I feel compelled to talk about. It's not horrible, it's not that serious, but then again it is serious. You know that I belong to a guild, and we have a newsletter, as all guilds do, and it's a really great newsletter. Our guild newsletter is very, very informative, very professionally done, and it's great. But there was one little thing that disturbed me, and it disturbed me because I'm a man in a woman's world. Actually, it's not a woman's world. Quilting is for anybody. It is not just for women, okay? And in this day and age, in the 21st century, we are trying to become much more aware of things that exclude individuals or things that are sexist. Men get accused of being sexist all the time, and rightly so in some cases. But that's not to say that women can't be sexist. In fact, women are sexist. But it seems to be a very touchy point with women when I bring that up to them. It's kind of like there's a double standard. Men can't be sexist and shouldn't be sexist. I'm not supporting sexism at all here. I'm not. But women think they can get away with it. Well, this disturbed me this morning because I'm going to hold it back here a bit because I don't want you to see names or anything. There's a little comic. It's one of those comics, you know, that they do. You've probably seen cards. Hallmark cards, I think, or somebody makes these cards with this crazy looking character in here. Well, here's what it says. A man and a quilt will both keep you warm at night, but a quilt never says anything stupid. Okay, at first glance, it's like, haha, that's funny, isn't that cute? But then I looked at it again and went, wait. This is a newsletter that the majority of the people that are getting this newsletter are ladies. This just slammed men. If the roles had been reversed, if it said a woman and a quilt both keep you warm at night, but a quilt never says anything stupid, would women put up with that kind of comment? I don't think they would. I think they'd call it out for what it is. It's sexist. Yes, I am sure that whoever submitted that cartoon to the newsletter did not have that in the back of their mind at all. They just thought it was cute, put it in. But I have to call them out on it. Because, as I said, if the roles were reversed, I would be called out on it. If I submitted something like that, I would be called out on it. So I'm just bringing it to your attention right now because the quilting world, although traditionally has been associated with women, in the 21st century, it is no longer so. There are many, many male quilters. Just go on YouTube. Just go on, search it on Google. You are going to find there are many of us out there. And I think that's great. I think then that makes it very inclusive. But a cartoon like this is exclusive. And in this day and age, that should not be put in a publication, especially a publication from an organization where we're trying to break the stigma that quilting is only something that women do. So that's my little rant today, and I'm sorry to end today's Idiot Quilter on that note, but I bring it up because I think if we become a little bit more aware, both sexes, of these things that we may innocently think there's nothing wrong with them, we have to rethink it in this day and age. We have to be a little bit more conscious of being inclusive in our language, in everything we do, really. And not just according to sexes, but according to, well, there's a whole host of things out there, isn't there? Race, religion, politics, I don't know, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, that's enough about that right now. Okay, so I hope to see some of you on Craft and Chat on Wednesday. I hope to see more of you on the first Idiot Quilter mini retreat in a week's time. And I hope you're enjoying your quilting or whatever hobby you're doing. And stay healthy, stay happy, stay in. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.